Hi, and welcome back to Enlace After Dark. I'm your host, Art, and joining me today, as always, my lovely co-host, Terry.
Hi.
Terry, on today's topic, what exactly are we tackling?
Well, I think it's a classic versus. I think everybody has had debates about this every once in a while. It's DC versus Marvel.
That is a classic. The old Captain America versus Batman, Superman versus Iron Man, the whole Shazam.
Would you say Superman and Captain America are similar?
In aspects, they do hold more closer moralities, but I'm more than certain Marvel has their fair share of near Superman characters as well.
Yeah, I think you and I are going to have fun with this. While I haven't read too many comic books, I definitely would like to. And I've seen at least a lot of good adaptations of both DC and Marvel. I know you've read some comic books, right?
I've been reading loosely lately on my comics. I will admit I do have a backlog, but we could blame school for that.
Yeah. Like, neither of us are going to say, like, we're 100% experts, but we have some more or less good knowledge about both.
I think I got a little
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. And I did bring notes because I'm a definite nerd. And I think when it comes to stuff like this, DC versus Marvel, some of the things to consider when it comes to pitting these two together, it's which one has the more memorable heroes, the better villains, best film, TV adaptations, definitely better storylines, and also just the overall positions they hold in pop culture. So, yeah, those are definitely things to talk about when it comes to both DC and Marvel and everything. So.
Right. But I think this topic also comes up because right around the corner is Ant-Man and the Wasp number 3, right? Quantumania coming up real soon into theaters.
Yeah.
But
is there an upcoming DC thing? I know Black Adam was not that long ago.
It should be Shazam sometime later this year.
Oh,
But
gotcha.
that's not the only news in the superhero world. See, Warner Brothers, right? They do all the DC movie stuff. They've actually had a change in CEO positions. So going forward, the DCEU is no longer a thing anymore. They're starting from scratch for like the third time.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. They've got 2 CEOs. So they have co-CEOs, and one of them is James Gunn,
Oh.
formerly the director of all the Guardians of the Galaxy
Yes.
franchise items for Marvel. He's going to finish up Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with Marvel and, continue his work with DC. And just recently, he's announced a whole slew of new projects and films to be coming out.
Yeah. I know he already pretty much dipped his toes into DC with the
Suicide
Suicide Squad.
Squads.
Yes, I really liked that one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Way better than the first one. So, yeah, I really like that one. So James Gunn, like, pretty much adding his touch to DC, I'm really looking forward to that. Definitely, for sure.
So what do we have up first on the chopping block?
Okay, I feel like stuff to talk about, especially because I wrote a lot about this, is the storylines. Especially because I know DC, they have, especially compared to Marvel, I know Marvel does, but DC is more known for the darker elements that they have to
Oh,
their
yeah.
stories, which I
Definitely.
think that's why I'm drawn to it a lot, because I kind of like that kind of stuff, like with The Killing Joke, which is literally about the Joker having a mission to drive Commissioner Gordon insane.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And his whole philosophy about, like, all it takes is one bad day just to basically be as crazy as I am. And then
Yeah.
there's Thomas Blackcrow. I think that one is lesser known. He was a character, he was a journalist for Gotham, the Gotham Gazette, yeah. And he was driven insane by the Joker because what it is with Thomas, he tried to be all tough with the Joker, trying to analyze him by saying, you know what, you may come off as this big persona, but in actuality, you're just a sad, lonely man with absolutely no friends. So Joker decided to, take things further by basically stalking Thomas, and in like with this whole ideal like, oh, well, then you're officially going to be my best friend. And as a result, Thomas went insane for that. So that was really interesting. And then, of course, there's Flashpoint, which is definitely one of the most iconic stories for DC.
That creates a lot of new storylines and also introduces the whole new 52 universe following that event. But yeah, no, DC Detective Comics rather is well off and well known for their more realistic and darker approaches to the comic book franchise, because they're not afraid to shy away from that kind of stuff, that kind of topic. Just look at the way of Batman's origins. His parents were shot and killed in an unfortunate mugging accident. And just in the different ways that they go about it, which brings us to Marvel, who takes a little bit of the lighter approach, but you'd actually be more surprised to know that they aren't afraid from delving into the darker territories as well. They have had a number of terrible things happen into their franchise, and a number of things that their characters have done that are just forgotten to history for now.
I think also, because, Marvel has had darker stories. I think House of M was one with, like, Scarlet Witch. She's, like, kind of going crazy. Or there was, like, something that kind of wiped out mutants or something. And she was, like, one of the remaining ones left. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know too many comic book storylines. I think that's what I gathered from it. And then there's the whole Infinity Saga, which we saw the adaptation of it with the MCU, with Infinity War and Endgame, and a lot of stuff happens there. But I think Marvel definitely does take a lighter tone, even with stuff happening. So, especially with the film adaptations we've seen with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which one of the big reasons it's what it is because of Disney. I mean, we've already seen darker things with the film adaptations, with Multiverse of Madness, which was, I really like that one. But yeah, when you compare it to the stuff that DC creates, it's pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And you can almost see a similar reflection in their films as well. Just take a look at the Batman film. That was a very dark and gritty detective film.
Which the Batman,
the
with
Batman
Robert Pattinson?
with Robert
Okay,
Pattinson, yeah. The look at that film, and then you take a look at, I don't know, any of the Iron Man, Captain America films, any of the others, there's more of a realism that DC does take into account for, whereas Disney's, or rather Marvel's characters have more of the hopeful humanity approach, which brings more light to their characters.
Yeah, very few of the Marvel films like have anything to compare to like the realistic, I guess, gritty stuff that you see with DC. I feel like one of the ones that is kind of close to it would be Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That one, there are superheroes still in it, but that was more like a detective spy drama, which I really liked.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So, and okay, so what do you think I already have my answer for this one. Of the two, which ones do you think have the better villains? Like,
Ooh.
yeah.
When it comes down to villains, I don't know, because when you talk about the Marvel villains, they're all, I mean, sure, you've got Red Skull, a former Nazi and all that. But then when you look at DC's, you've got characters like the Condiment King.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
And then, you've got your classic Joker, but to each their own, to each of their own, honestly. They have amazing villains. And if I had to choose, I think I really would still just go with my DC villains.
I think with villains, yeah, it's definitely DC. Only because they're with Marvel villains. I feel like they they're bad. Obviously, they've done bad things, but they lean more on the anti-heroic side, I guess you could say. Whereas DC, they have perfect examples of people who are just that. They're like 100% villainous. Of course, there's still characters, I guess you could say, like Catwoman, who is more of an anti-hero with all the stuff that she has going on with Batman. But then you have other people who are like Joker, who basically there's like no sob story or anything unless he creates it out of thin air to gain
Well,
allies.
the Joker has always liked to have his backstory and origins at least be multiple choice.
Yes.
He
Well,
has-
yeah, that's the point. Like, he just basically thinks, okay, let me create this story because it fits with this situation. Like, let me see if I can take advantage of what I can by doing this or talking about this, because he's not a sympathetic character. I mean, of course, you have adaptations of him, variants of him, like Arthur Fleck, you know, the Joaquin Phoenix movie, and then you have Martha Wayne as the Joker in Flashpoint. She has some sympathy because she basically went insane after witnessing her only child, you know, being shot. But other than that, yeah, Joker is like like a definition of a villain.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I think that's why I prefer the DC villains over Marvel. And plus, with Marvel, from what I've seen in movies, whether it's the MCU or like previous Marvel movies, like they don't last very long. Like they don't make it to the sequel or anything.
I mean, you can say the same about the older DC films. In a lot of the Batman movies, his villains also perished within that film. At least in the Christopher Nolan films, I believe, directed it. But then you also have the original, like, Tim Burton movies where most of his villains do just go to Arkham and then survive for a bit. But other than that, I mean, the next film isn't about the next villain. And I see what you mean when you're talking about the Marvel villains and how they don't seem to last very long. But realistically, you gotta realize when you're talking about the movies and the comics, you can't just always have your comic book ending where you arrest them, they go back to the jail, they go back to prison, wherever they came from, and then they break out, because you can't do that with all of them. And in some of the cases, they leave you no choice but to do that, or their own demise is by their own greed and hatred, And, like, look at Yellow Jacket. He wanted the technology, he wanted the pim particles, and then he shrinks himself down beyond anything else and, lost to the whims of time.
Yeah.
Red Skull, he was after the power of the Tesseract and then proceeded to be consumed by it and left for dead on oh my god, what was the planet? I know the Vormir?
Vormir?
Vormir, yeah.
Yeah.
But in the same cases, these villains sometimes will do more when they have actually passed away. And seeing as the next Ant-Man film is dealing with Quantumania and the quantum realm, who's to say we might not hear something about Yellow Jacket in it?
Yeah.
He might have played a role in it somehow because he was shrunk down to the atomic level. And again, with like Red Skull, he played a part later in Infinity War. So I think
possible,
when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, their villains do have room to play an eventual part. And even Abomination from the original, or the start of the MCU Hulk movie, he does make a comeback. And fortunately for Abomination, with the same character. I mean, the same actor, rather.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because that is definitely something I really like about Marvel. They really know like how to do like a good multiverse, like and with the just having different variants of characters show up and being part of like a big storyline or something. So I haven't seen too much of that with DC. I guess the only time I myself saw it was with Flashpoint, which even though it was just the one, it still did a great example of like an alternate universe and how basically this one thing with Barry Allen, aka the Flash, tried to save his mom. It basically caused a butterfly effect, and all of this horrors like happened all because of this one thing. So, and with Marvel, they've come up with different. I wouldn't know if they've come up with something that's like Flashpoint, but they've had different stories involving the multiverse, which I really think is really cool. So.
Right, but when it comes down to the comics, they both do have their own multiverses. DC has had many events involving the multiverse, the near destruction of the multiverse. There's an older DC animated movie where it's like the War for Two Earths or something like that, where they have to go to the Earth 2 in order to essentially save that world from its own heroes that are more or less villains, as they then plan to destroy the entire multiverse through that. And, but when it comes down to it, we hear a lot more of Marvel just because they've honestly had a better turnover and better turn of events with their cinematic universe, whereas DC had always been better off doing television series than they were with films. But a lot of that comes from the fact that Warner Brothers, honestly, they got a little too involved with a lot of their projects and messed up their entire plan for the most part. I mean, the DCEU has been reset so many times, to which now, hopefully, with James Gunn and his co-CEO, whose name I forget at the moment, they're resetting it, and they're starting off now with Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. But still, back to the multiverse thing, there's countless multiverses in DC. They're, I think currently in one of their storylines, they're still dealing with the Bat Who Laughs. And essentially what that is, Joker somehow managed to infect the Batman of his universe with some sort of insanity to the similar degree of the Joker's, which has driven Batman into this post-apocalyptic, like, punk rock nightmare world where he's now trying to infect other multiverses, other worlds with this, and has gone as far as in one comic issue infecting our Superman with it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's an insane storyline, honestly.
Yeah, I remember like that was like the Injustice storyline, or like with he kind of made Superman like.
Oh, that's a different multiverse.
Yeah, no,
but yeah, the Injustice universe.
Yeah,
as well.
I remember thinking that, or Superman as an end result, he ends up killing the Joker because of everything. Yeah, and I think that is like. You even said it yourself, Marvel has been able to have these good adaptations, so that way people kind of like me, like we see the stuff that, Marvel is really good at with the multiverse and people portraying these characters that we like, but it's because DC hasn't really been the best when it comes to creating their own cinematic universe. I mean, we've at least had the shows, like on CW. I remember hearing that about the two Earths battling because of the
Crisis of Infinite Earths and all that.
Yeah.
And then even in the Flash, when they had their own little Flashpoint episode series and just connecting all their universes and even having the multiverse open up to where Supergirl is in her own universe and so forth.
Yeah. Their version of Flashpoint, it was decent. It's just, it wasn't as great as Like, I was even gonna mention it. Like, DC is definitely good with the animated like movies that they've done, and their adaptation of Flashpoint, it was really good. I remember seeing it, and I was like, "Dang."
Yeah. And it's funny that you mention up the animations again after I brought it up. Only because James Gunn wants the same actors that are portraying these characters in live action to be the same ones that will be portraying them in animation now. So DC has a whole list of animated TV series and stuff that they're coming up with. So all the characters that are being casted there are probably going to have a chance to portray their characters on also the big screen.
Oh wow.
Yeah, very similar to the, I think it was Batgirl or Batwoman, the TV series on the CW, where, or was it Teen Titans? Or the Titans, where essentially Kevin Conroy, one of the original voice actors for Batman, had an opportunity to portray older Batman in the series, which was really a really nice touch because, you know, for me at least, my childhood, that was my Batman, Kevin Conroy, and my Joker was Mark Hamill for all the times.
Oh my God, wouldn't it be like interesting if like Mark Hamill played like a live version of maybe older Joker or something?
That would be interesting, but unfortunately, we'll never see that day come.
No, I can dream.
We could all dream, especially after the news that Mark Hamill will no longer be portraying the Joker. Yeah. Without his Batman, he's just not complete anymore.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I know. I actually did see that episode of Crisis of Infinite Earths, and they had Kevin Conroy himself be older Batman, and I thought that was really cool. So.
Yeah, it was a really neat feature added on. But still, even with it.
Like with back to the DCEU and basically it rebooting again, do you think that even if they do reboot it, they're going to bring maybe some of the actors that we already know, like Gal Gadot still would be Wonder Woman or Jason Momoa as Aquaman? Anything?
From what I've been seeing off the net and from the community of itself, James Gunn wants to replace some of these actors with some younger faces, but he is more than willing to keep some of the other actors around. I believe it is the Shazam actors. I believe they're still in high hopes to keep their characters and their roles in the upcoming universe. Jason Momoa maybe still keeping Aquaman or even switching over to Lobo, more of an anti-hero character in the DC universe. And even the new actor that they got for the Blue Beetle film, I believe he's still keeping his position in the DC universe and all that. But
and then as far as Marvel, the current cinematic universe, there have been talks. I think this is mostly fans talking and missing the OG Avengers. And there have been rumors about, you know, RDJ, Chris Evans, at least making small appearances in future projects, which I really hope it's just rumors and nothing more. Only because I really think they've been doing a good job, you know, post, you know, Endgame. Like, not all of them are going to be winners. Like, I really didn't like Thor: Love and Thunder.
Thor: Love and Thunder was a bit of a miss, and then you have an absolute out of the field with Eternals. That was a big miss. I mean, as a fan of it myself as well, I would like to see them come back, but not so soon. I'd rather wait for the big multiverse endgame style that they have set up where, you know, I finally get Captain America back, but, you know, he might not understand what's going on, but still takes it upon himself to lead all of these heroes from all these universes, regardless if it's from our 616 universe or not. But
yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping. If they do come back, it'll be, I guess you could say, similar to Infinity War, where this big thing happens where they have to come back somehow, whether it's a variant of them or somehow they're back to being what they are.
I just want to see my 3 Spider-Man back
Oh
on
my
the big
God,
screen
yes.
again.
That was
That'd be
so
great.
amazing.
I think it'd be hilarious to see the Human Torch and Captain America side by side, the original Human
Yes.
Torch,
Yeah.
because they were both Chris Evans.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And just, I'm interested to see how this multiverse is going to go down, because so many characters have portrayed so many of them, like Ben Affleck, a former Batman now, who also portrayed an earlier Daredevil.
Yes.
Or even, I doubt that it would happen, but even getting the original Frank Castle on for and meeting the new Punisher, or however else that they do all of this. I mean, the possibilities are just endless
It's
right
definitely, especially because another big bad is like already in the works in the MCU with Kang. So
Yeah.
we've already seen him in Loki, which I'm very excited for the second season. And then he's now going to be in this upcoming Ant-Man movie. So, and he even said like a variant of him is like really, someone to be on the lookout for. He's
Oh,
very
yeah.
dangerous. So very excited. And I know he even shows up in like some Moon Knight comics too. And I'm a big fan of Moon Knight. I don't think you can see I'm wearing a Moon Knight shirt right now. And I think he, in one storyline, a bunch of Moon Knight variants, like they go toe to toe with Kang. I could be remembering it wrong, but so Kang could basically be the new Thanos, is what I'm saying.
Well,
So-
Kang is for sure the new Thanos of the multiverse saga, but the only other depiction of Kang in any relatively recent, like, Marvel animation that you could find of just how powerful Kang may be is going to be your Avengers Assemble animated TV show, where I want to say by the end of the first or second season of that, he was the big bad and actually managed to knock down the entire Avengers team. You had Captain America, Iron Man, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Hulk, Ant-Man, the Wasp, and they were all laid out, and he did it without even breaking a sweat once to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I need to see Avengers Assemble. I heard that was a pretty
I
decent-
grew up with that one. That was a
Yeah.
good one. It was a great one.
I'm gonna watch that one.
And then even that one ties into the sister series of it. There's another Avengers series of it, but I haven't gotten into that one yet, just because they're school.
Yeah, like Marvel, their animated stuff. It doesn't. That's not as well known as the DC stuff, because I remember watching the animated series like you. I really liked Batman the animated series.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and then Flashpoint I really liked. I haven't watched a lot of the animated DC movies. I did see the one with the Jason Todd one where Joker does end up killing him. He comes back as the Red Hood. I forgot the name of that one, but I remember seeing the
Death
movie.
in the Family is that comic line.
Yeah, I just don't remember the movie title of it. I think it's Death in the Family. I could be wrong, though.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But
I don't know.
either. Yeah, no, the animation team for them has been immaculate for the DC animated universe, at least. And I really do like how in some of the films they actually still connected back to their original TV series of the Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series, Flash the animated series, and all of it leading back up into the Justice League and then Justice League Unlimited, and some of these films do tie back into that original animated universe, which for me is joyous to know that they're still kind of keeping my little childhood alive in some ways.
Let's not forget about Teen Titans. Not Teen Titans Go, the actual
Teen
Teen
Titans,
Titans.
the good one.
I loved that one. So, I haven't seen the show Titans, the live action one.
I haven't seen it either, but it's still going, so there's something to be said about it.
Yeah, that one doesn't catch my attention too much. I do want to see Peacemaker though, the one with John Cena in it. I keep saying I'm gonna watch it, but I haven't.
Yeah. Peacemaker, I don't think is making it into the new not animated, into the new DC universe. I don't think he's making it.
I just mostly just wanted to watch it because I really liked the Suicide Squad.
Oh
so
yeah, that was a good one.
I think it's one of the very few DC live action films I liked. So I liked that one. I thought the first Wonder Woman was pretty good, and then Shazam was really great too.
Yeah.
And then and then of course if we're going back, I really of course like the Dark Knight trilogy. That's always a classic.
Those were big classics then. But either way, the DCEU is no longer that. It's and they're calling it something else now. But Chapter 1, God and Monsters, and again, they've got a big lineup coming through with it. And I think it is, they're utilizing the Flash movie to transition into this new universe that they're doing. And everything else outside of it is actually being called, like, the DC Elsewhere universe or something like that. Where it's, again, they're treating all those little universes like comic book storylines. They're their own little entities and they exist outside of it. So like the Batman, they're actually getting a sequel and it's the Batman Part 2. Nothing to do with the main universe of it. They're just their own little spin-offs.
But is Robert Pattinson gonna still
Oh
be-
yes,
okay.
absolutely. He's gonna the Batman for that universe.
Okay.
As to whether or not he'll continue being Batman for the main universe,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
we can only find
know.
out.
I know Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. That's getting a sequel too.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think it's part of that whole thing. I
No,
think
it's
just
not going to be a part of the
yeah.
main universe.
I mean, I'm still gonna watch it
Oh
because
yeah,
I
absolutely.
really like
They
Joker.
got Lady Gaga for it.
Yes, I think they said it's gonna be a musical, but
It's going to be kind of, sort of, from the perspective of Harley, and it's going to be more musical based. So
that's interesting. I'm gonna watch it definitely because
Oh,
I
yeah.
do like Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix is cool. Like I don't know if you've ever heard him sing. The only time he's ever sang was when he was Johnny Cash in that one biopic. So
oh yeah, I've seen some clips of that.
yes,
But that's going to be a really interesting film to watch, especially after watching the first Joker film and just how many questions come up from it, and just how it makes you question everything. Like there was something about, if you look at all the clocks, they're all dialed into the same time.
really.
Yeah.
Like I when that movie came out, I also like took a, I really looked at different theory videos about it, but I haven't heard the clock one. What's like what does
It
that have to
just
do with
pretty
it?
much is, if you look at any of the analog clocks, they all read the exact same time in every scene. And that's supposed to just further question your idea of like, where are you, or like what's going on, because at the end of the film it turns out, and we find out he's actually been in Arkham the whole time for the
Well,
most
I
part.
mean, that's not confirmed. I think that was more just a theory that it was just a story he was telling or something. Or they even said it's just a result of everything that happened in the movie.
Exactly.
That's
We
why
don't
you
know.
have no
We don't
clue.
know, which is another really great example of the good films that DC could be putting out.
Exactly.
But again, with the new change in power occurring. No, that was a little joke to bite off of Black Adam, and how there was a big change in power coming along, and then
I haven't seen Black Adam. Well, I mean, it didn't draw my attention that much.
it's all right. You don't
Yeah, I
have to
heard
watch
it was. I didn't hear bad things about it, but I
Yeah.
didn't hear people say like, "Oh, it's the greatest movie ever."
Yeah, there are just a lot more jokes that came out of it than anything else, but it's kind of worth the watch. I mean, now that it should be leaving theaters relatively soon. I'd rather watch it at home.
If it shows on HBO Max, I'll probably watch it. I know HBO Max has a lot of DC stuff, so it'll most likely be on there. I saw Black Panther, the Wakanda Forever.
Oh yeah, that was
really
that
liked
was
it.
good. That was great.
So, like, with Now, with all the stuff we talked about, what do you think both of them, when it comes to their places in pop culture, like, what can you say about each of them, you know?
I think Marvel definitely has a stronger grasp on everyone in when it comes down to the pop culture aspect, but DC has its little spikes and its little moments in it, and without the die-hard fans, then they still wouldn't be around, of course.
I think with the heroes, at least with DC, those are the ones that even people who aren't the biggest fans of like comic books or superheroes or anything like that, they know these characters. Like if you ask a person who pretty much knows little to nothing about comic books or superheroes, but you still ask them, quick, who's the first superhero to pop into your head? They'll probably say Superman, Batman. Those are DC characters. Maybe they'll say Spider-Man, but that's the only one I could think of if you're asking someone who knows like nothing about
But
that
again, when it comes down to the pop culture, I think it's actually more so the DC villains that have the hold on the pop culture thing.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, we saw a very big, like, popular trend in everyone wanting to be like Harley. Everyone was dyeing their hair, everyone was getting styles like Harley from the film and others and so forth. Whereas, I mean, Marvel has the big brand going on for its heroes more so than its villains.
Yeah, I find like Marvel has definitely made a bigger name for themselves, but mostly because they have Disney to back them up with that.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for Disney, they probably like DC would definitely have a bigger place. Like, but no, I see what you get with DC. It's more the villains that people know and everything. With Marvel, I think everyone's knowing it and they want to at least learn more about everything that goes on because of all the Marvel movies and other projects. So.
Yeah, but I do believe that is all the time we've got for today's episode.
Yes.
So we'll catch you next time on Enlace After Dark. I was Art.
I am Terry.
And we'll see y'all later. Bye.